What's gaming, gamers? Today, I'm going to build for you using the Night Stalker Hunter subclass paired with the Graviton Forfeit exotic helmet. This build is designed to grant you an effective 100% uptime to your invisibility, letting you stay invisible for as long as you want without ever being seen by enemies. To start off with describing this build, I'll first go over the Graviton Forfeit exotic helmet and its perk, Vanishing Shadow. Vanishing Shadow will increase the potency of your invisibility effect slightly, increasing its duration by 2 seconds across the board. Additionally, while invisible, your melee ability will recharge 400% faster, with that increased recharge rate further increasing by 200% per enemy nearby, maxing out at an 800% increased recharge rate when near 2 or more enemies while invisible. Furthermore, while invisible, the reload speed of your weapons is increased to its max, and your recovery stat is also increased to its max. Your recovery being increased to its max while invisible is really good for this build, as you can focus your stats into mobility and resilience entirely and not have to worry about recovery. Now that you understand what Graviton Forfeit does, I'll get into the subclass setup for this build. I'll put everything on screen first as a prescriptive setup, and once I've done that, I'll describe each choice individually, detailing why I've chosen it as well as any alternative options should there be any. Firstly, for your super, run either Mobius Quiver or Deadfall. Run the Marksman's Dodge, whichever jump you prefer, the Snare Bomb melee, the Vortex Grenade, the Trapper's Ambush aspect, the Vanishing Step aspect, Echo of Dilation, Echo of Obscurity, and Echo of Persistence. Now to go in depth on the subclass build. Firstly, the supers. Mobius Quiver is a good super for damaging targets, so if you're running solo content and need to kill a champion or a boss quickly, Mobius would be the better option. If you're using your super for ad clearing, or for orb generation for your teammates, Deadfall would be the better option. Deadfall lasts twice as long as Mobius, and kills on tethered enemies increase the duration of the Deadfall anchor by half a second each up to a maximum of 25 seconds. I generally find myself running Deadfall for its orb generation and ad clearing capabilities, as I run this build mostly in group content and my teammates generally have damage supers. However, it's up to you which of the two supers you run, so play with them both and see which suits your specific playstyle or needs better. For your dodge, Marksman's Dodge is the better option for keeping your invisibility at 100% uptime, as it has a 29-second cooldown versus Gambler's Dodge's 38-second cooldown. Additionally, you don't need Gambler's Dodge's instant melee regeneration, as the 800% increase to your melee ability's regeneration while invisible granted by Graviton Forfeit is perfectly suitable for regenerating your melee ability. For your melee ability, the Snare Bomb is the only one. Snare Bomb, upon being thrown, will weaken enemies for 5 seconds, which makes those enemies take 15% more damage from you and your teammates for its duration. Additionally, those enemies become disoriented, decreasing their accuracy when shooting at you. For the grenade, it's generally personal preference. There aren't any fragments in this build that take advantage of anything your grenades can do, so you can run whichever you want. I prefer the Vortex Grenade, but you could run Suppressor Grenade for its anti-overload capabilities if you want, the Void Wall Grenade for its higher overall damage, or just whichever grenade you like the most. Onto the aspects, firstly, Trapper's Ambush. This will grant your smoke bombs the capability to turn you invisible, which is imperative for this build's effectiveness. Smoke Bomb, upon use, will grant you and allies invisibility for 4.8 seconds, which is increased to 6.8 seconds with the Graviton Forfeit helmet. Additionally, Trapper's Ambush grants you the Quickfall air move ability. Quickfall, upon use, will spend your melee charge, creating a smoke cloud upon landing and turning you invisible. Any enemy caught in the smoke cloud will take up to 200 damage and will be weakened for 10 seconds, which is twice as long as the smoke bomb itself weakens for. Furthermore, Quickfall turns you and allies invisible for 6.3 seconds, which itself is longer than smoke bomb's invisibility and is increased to 8.3 seconds with Graviton Forfeit helmet. The second aspect to run is Vanishing Step. Upon the use of your dodge ability, you will become invisible for 4.8 seconds, which is increased to 6.8 seconds with the Graviton Forfeit helmet. However, there's a little bit more nuance to it than just that. While you're invisible, if you use your dodge ability, Vanishing Step will refresh your invisibility timer to the maximum duration of the source by which you initially became invisible. As that's a bit confusing of a description, I'll provide you with an example. If you use Quickfall, you'll become invisible for 8.3 seconds with Graviton Forfeit. If, with 1 second left on your invisibility timer, you use your dodge ability, Vanishing Step will increase your invisibility timer back to 8.3 seconds. If you wait for your invisibility to wear off, you'll just get the normal 6.8 seconds of invisibility granted by Vanishing Step. I'll talk more about this when I get into the playstyle towards the end of the video, but when starting your invisibility chain, always use your Quickfall first. To get into the fragments, firstly, Echo of Dilation. This one's more for the stat boosts it provides, but it's also a nice boost to your movement speed while crouched. Echo of Dilation grants you 10 to both your mobility and intellect stats, with the mobility increase being the main draw of this fragment. Additionally, your crouching movement speed is set to 4 meters per second, which is greater than your base crouching movement speed at tier 10 mobility. The next fragment is Echo of Obscurity. Echo of Obscurity will grant you invisibility for 4.8 seconds upon finishing an enemy, which is important for making it safer to actually finish a target in higher end content. With Graviton Forfeit, the invisibility granted by Echo of Obscurity is increased to 6.8 seconds, which is identical to the invisibility duration granted by the Vanishing Step aspect. Echo of Obscurity also increases your recovery stat by 10, which isn't actually important, but is nice to have anyways. Lastly for fragments is Echo of Persistence. This is the most important fragment as it increases the duration of any void buff applied to you. As this build only takes advantage of invisibility, that's all I'll describe. Echo of Persistence will increase the duration of any invisibility effect applied to you by 41.5%, which is applied after Graviton Forfeit applies its plus 2 seconds to any void invisibility. This increases your quickfall invisibility duration to 11.7 seconds and your Vanishing Step and Echo of Obscurity invisibility durations to 9.6 seconds. This is really strong for helping you with your 100% invisibility uptime, as the increase to the invisibility's duration makes your stat requirements slightly more lenient. With the subclass build out of the way, I'll get into the artifact mods to choose if you're playing during Season 20, the Season of Defiance. In the first column, run whichever anti-champion mods you need for the activity you'll be heading into. In the second column, run the authorized mods for both void weapons and grenades. These will decrease the cost of armor mods affecting your void weapons and grenades to a cost of 1 energy, simply allowing you to slot more into your armor. In the third column, first run the Shatter Orbs mod. This will cause an orb of power to summon the first time you destroy the shield of a combatant with the corresponding energy type. If that enemy's shield regenerates, it will not summon an orb of power on subsequent destructions. Next, run the Volatile Flow mod. Volatile Flow will grant your void weapons volatile rounds for 13 seconds upon the collection of an orb of power, which increases the damage output of your void weapons, as well as granting any void weapon which doesn't already have anti-champion capabilities the ability to pierce barrier shields. In the fourth column, run the Bricks from Beyond mod. This will grant you an effective 25% chance to summon a brick of heavy ammo for you and your allies upon killing a powerful combatant with any void weapon, which is really good for keeping your team's heavy ammo at its max. In the fifth and final column, firstly, grab the Void Weapon Channeling mod. Void Weapon Channeling, upon getting a kill with a void weapon with any of your void abilities charged, will grant you a damage boost to your void weapons. This boost is 10% with 1 ability charged, 17% with 2 abilities charged, 22% with 3 abilities charged, and 25% with 4 abilities charged. Your super being charged counts as an ability, which is where the 4 abilities comes from. Void Weapon Channeling does not stack with any weapon surge mods in your legs, but that's fine as this build doesn't take advantage of any of those. Now, one very important thing to note with this mod is that it appears to be error coding people. I will link a video by Esoteric in the description where they describe what appears to be an issue with the Void Weapon Channeling mod specifically. Thus, as of right now, use Void Weapon Channeling at your own risk as you may get error coded out of activities. Lastly, in the fifth column, run the Prismatic Transfer mod. Prismatic Transfer will grant your teammates a 20% bonus to weapon damage for 10 seconds after the casting of your super, so long as their subclass element differs from yours. Prismatic Transfer's buff doesn't stack with any other damage buffs, like Radiant or Weapons of Light, but is still a good option if your teammates aren't running the Void subclass and don't have any damage buffs currently applied to them. With the artifact out of the way, I can get into the armor setup for this build. I'll first go over stat distribution. In the top 3 stat grouping of Mobility, Resilience, and Recovery, make sure your Mobility is at least Tier 7. I'll talk more about the specifics of the invisibility loop later in the video, but with no armor mods equipped, Tier 7 Mobility is the absolute minimum required to keep a 100% uptime on your invisibility. Spec into Resilience second, with Recovery not mattering as much as you're granted 100 points to your Recovery stat while invisible due to the Graviton Forfeit helmet. In the bottom 3 stat grouping of Discipline, Intellect, and Strength, spec into whichever ones you want, as none of them are overly important. The higher your Strength stat, the sooner your melee ability will recharge, but in my testing, I got my Strength stat down to Tier 4 along with Mobility 7, and I was able to keep the invisibility loop going without any enemies nearby. Thus, even if you don't have high stat armor, this build will work so long as you spec into Mobility. My build has me at 91 Mobility, 90 Resilience, 33 Recovery, 71 Discipline, 32 Intellect, and 80 Strength. To get into the armor mods, I'll first put everything I use on screen as a prescriptive setup and then get into detail as to what each mod does and why I've chosen them, as well as any alternative options should there be any. On your helmet, run 3 Harmonic Siphon mods. On your arms, run a Harmonic Dexterity mod and a Shield Break Charge mod. On your chest piece, run a Charged Up mod and 2 of whatever damage resistance mods you prefer. On your legs, run a Better Already mod, a Recuperation mod, and a Stacks on Stacks mod. On your cloak, run 2 Utility Kickstart mods. To detail the mods, firstly the helmets mods. I choose to run 3 Harmonic Siphon mods as I find myself using void weapons frequently, and having 3 Harmonic Siphons massively increases both mine and my teammates' super uptimes due to the increased potency of the summoned orb. If you find yourself using your kinetic weapon more often, put some Kinetic Siphon mods in your helmet. If you find yourself needing ammo, run heavier special ammo finders. This build is very fluid and you can put whatever mods in your helmet you need, as none of them are imperative to the build's functionality. Onto the arms, firstly the Harmonic Dexterity mod. This mod simply increases the ready and stow speed of your void weapons, which is more of a PvP oriented mod but is a nice passive buff in PvE as well. The Shield Break Charge mod will grant you 1 stack of armor charge upon destroying the shield of a combatant with the corresponding element type. This pairs really nicely with the Shatter Orbs mod, as Shatter Orbs will also summon an Orb of Power upon the destruction of a combatant's shield with the corresponding energy type. This effectively grants you 2 stacks of armor charge per shield destroyed with the correct energy type, suggesting you pick up the Orb of Power generated as well. One thing to note, I tried using the Focusing Strike mod as I figured it would be pretty neat to get class ability energy back upon the use of your melee ability, as the melee ability makes you invisible. However, Focusing Strike doesn't work with the Quickfall ability, making it useless for this build specifically. For the chest piece, the Charged Up mod will allow you to have 1 more stack of armor charge, up from a maximum of 3, energy to a maximum of 4 stacks of armor charge. As this build leverages armor charge to refund ability energy, the more stacks of armor charge you have, the more ability energy you'll be refunded. Next, the damage resistance mods. You can run whichever damage resistance mods you need for the activity you'll be heading into. For example, if I'm running an activity with an arc threat, I'll run 2 arc resistance mods, as those will grant me a 25% damage reduction to incoming arc damage, nullifying the threat modifier altogether. Onto the legs, the Better Already mod will instantly start health regeneration upon the collection of an Orb of Power. This is beneficial if you're low health, as you can go invisible and safely pick up an Orb of Power to start your health regeneration. Better Already also pairs nicely with the next mod, Recuperation, which will instantly grant you 70 health upon the collection of an Orb of Power. Neither Better Already nor Recuperation stack, so one of each grants you the most benefit to your health. If you don't feel like you need either of them, you can run any of the ability energy granting mods like Innervation, Insulation, or Invigoration. Lastly, for the legs, run a Stacks on Stacks mod. Stacks on Stacks will increase the amount of stacks of armor charge you gain upon the acquisition of an Orb of Power by 1, granting you 2 stacks of armor charge per orb picked up. Onto the cloak, the 2 utility kickstart mods will grant you class ability energy based on the amount of stacks of armor charge you have at the time of the use of your class ability. Because there are 2 utility kickstart mods equipped, you'll get a minimum of 16.7% of your class ability refunded instantly upon the use of your class ability without any armor charges. Any stacks of armor charge will increase that number, with this build's maximum of 4 armor charge stacks granting you a total of 41.2% class ability energy. Utility Kickstart will consume all stacks of armor charge upon use, so you'll have to build them up every time to get the most class ability energy refunded, but so long as your mobility is at least tier 7, the Utility Kickstart mods just serve to guarantee your invisibility's uptime. One thing I'll note, my build allows me to slot a +5 stat mod into my cloak, which grants me 3 extra energy with which I can slot an armor mod. I use this extra energy to slot a Reaper mod, which will cause my next weapon final blow after using my class ability to summon an Orb of Power. As this build uses the class ability frequently, this is a terrific passive boost to my armor charge uptime, which, in turn, allows me more flexibility when chaining invisibility. If you wanted, you could forego one of the utility kickstarts in favor of a Reaper mod, but I prefer the ease of use of the 2 utility kickstarts over the Reaper mod, and I only have the Reaper mod slotted because my armor's build allows me to. With the armor build out of the way, I can get into some weapon choices for this build. I recommend anything void, whether it be energy or power, as it will synergize with both the seasonal artifact and any harmonic mods in your armor. Furthermore, of those void weapons, I would recommend anything that has either repulsor brace or destabilizing rounds. These 2 perks synergize well with the void subclass and can help you to further your survivability in the case of repulsor brace or your damage output in the case of destabilizing rounds. As for specific weapons I recommend, firstly, there's the Tidal Void Submachine Gun that is currently acquirable from the Guardian Games event. This event will be live for 3 weeks, so get yours while you can. Now, I am recording this video before Guardian Games is out, so my recommended perks won't be based on personal use, but rather on speculation and knowledge of perks I enjoy on other Void Submachine Guns. In its 3rd column, my top 2 picks would be Threat Detector and Feeding Frenzy, with Envious Assassin being a niche but possibly useful pick. In its 4th column, Repulsor Brace will be my go-to pick, but Surrounded will synergize with Threat Detector and Swashbuckler will serve to up the weapon's damage output. Next, the Unforgiven Submachine Gun from the Vault and Keitel encounters in the Duality Dungeon. This weapon is the same archetype as the Tidal SMG, so if you missed Guardian Games or otherwise didn't get a title you wanted, Unforgiven is an alternative. In its 3rd column, Feeding Frenzy and Demolitionist are the standout perks. In its 4th column, all of the possible options are good in their own way. I'd recommend Repulsor Brace and Frenzy the most for this build specifically, but all of them work quite well. I have 2 roles of Unforgiven, one with Feeding Frenzy and Frenzy, and another with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie. Lastly, for energy weapons is the Nessus Ablation Shotgun from the 1st, 2nd, and last encounters in the Root of Nightmares raid. This shotgun synergizes heavily with the Void subclass, with its role of Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing rounds encapsulating everything the Void subclass has to offer. I am of the opinion that this weapon works best with Void Hunter builds that take advantage of the Stylish Executioner aspect, but with this one it's also good, as the overshields granted by Repulsor Brace will act to keep you alive longer while you're not invisible. For heavy weapons, as there aren't any surge mods slotted in the legs, you can run whatever you want. This season I found myself running Commemoration with Reconstruction and Killing Tally a lot, but anything would work, especially if it corresponds with the activity's active surges or overcharges. With weapons out of the way, I'll quickly describe the method with which you can keep your invisibility up 100% of the time. It's actually super simple. First, use your quick fall ability by jumping and pressing your air move button, which will grant you invisibility for 11.7 seconds. Air move's keybind can be set in the options menu. Next, once your invisibility duration is nearing 1 second left, use your dodge ability. This will refresh your invisibility back to its 11.7 second duration. It is imperative you use your dodge ability either before or as the invisibility timer ticks to 1 second left, as you only become invisible at the end of the dodge animation, and that animation takes about half a second to play out. Thus, if you use your dodge too late, you will become visible for a fraction fraction of a second, and your dodge won't refresh your invisibility to the quick fall duration of 11.7 seconds, but will instead refresh it to your dodge's cooldown of 9.6 seconds. This may not sound like a large difference, and it really isn't, but the lower your mobility stat, the more important the duration of your invisibility is. Now that you've refreshed your invisibility to its maximum duration, wait until you're at around 2 seconds left on your invisibility timer and use quick fall again. The higher up in the air you are, the longer it will take quick fall to make you invisible, as you're visible through its entire animation until you hit the floor. This means it can be risky using quick fall nearby high damage area of effect enemies like Hive Knights, or any enemy that has a stomp ability like Cabal Colossuses. But that's the entire loop. Start with quick fall, wait until there's around 2 seconds left on your invisibility duration and use your dodge ability. Then wait again until there's around 2 seconds left on your invisibility timer and use quick fall again. Doing this over and over again will let you stay invisible indefinitely. But that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have anything to say, whether that be alternative ideas, constructive criticisms, or otherwise just have something to say, please leave a comment. If you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Additionally, if you'd like to join our clan, the Tyrant Seraphs, I've left a link to both the Bungie website and the Discord server in the description for you to check out. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.